All right, we've got Neha Satya back doing another podcast with us. Neha, welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be here again.
Yeah. Neha, why don't you give the audience your background, what you've been up to, your journey of becoming a product manager?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Vivek. First of all, good to see you. Hope your
Yes.
trip was good. And welcome back to the USA.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, product management. I've been a product manager now for about, I would say almost 3 to 4 years. And it's been quite the journey. I mean, I think I've learned a lot about, tech products and essentially, how to kind of understand what needs to be solved, and what problems need to be focused on to really ultimately produce the right results for both the business and the product itself. So prior
Yeah.
to product management, I was actually a data analyst. And prior to that, my background is in healthcare, especially as a pre-medicine student. So I had no idea, what the tech world was about, what product management was about. And as you know, just because you were involved in, this journey for me, I had to kind of switch 360 from going to med school to really becoming a product manager and learning everything about what this entails.
Yeah.
So really, I think in this podcast, would love to kind of, give insight.
Yeah. Yeah, Neha, I remember you having conversation with you. This is years ago. You thinking about going to med school, and you're also doing some data analyst work at healthcare. So I'm curious, what made you wanna go into product management, and what are some of the core skill sets that kind of helped you make this transition?
Yeah. Um, so to address your first question, what made me want to go into product management? It definitely was not a straightforward decision for me, because I was playing around with a couple career options. And ultimately, it all came down to the impact that product managers have on decision making within the company.
Yeah.
You hear a lot of time, product is CEO, of the company, and I don't believe that is true. It's really, product people are enablers for their
Yeah.
team,
Mm-hmm.
and they provide them the right strategy, tactics, user
Mm-hmm.
information, product
Yeah.
information to help them guide that decision. And as you know, I'm from the biology background. So in biology, experimentation is everything.
Mm.
Using data to determine if a hypothesis is successful or not is, the core principle of biology. And I love that I could transition that to product management.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how what you learn, like, you did biology, so you ran a lot of experiments in the lab. You appreciated the idea of working with data. So, and then you were doing some data analyst work for a large corporation, right? So what working as a data analyst, did that help you, or did that give you a desire to want to go into like more of a customer facing environment where you're driving some of these initiatives?
Yeah. I love being a data analyst, but ultimately my skill set is really long-term visionary focused. So I'm able to, obviously I can dive really deep into data and use that to make product decisions. But ultimately, where I really enjoy product management is being able to speak to clients, users, to understand the main reason behind their request. So why do they want certain things? Why do they want certain feature? And really get to the bottom of that and kind of work, cross-functionally to deliver on the right solution. And sometimes that
Yeah.
solution is unique, sometimes it's not what they came up with to you for a request. It's up to you to figure out, like what is that right solution for them. So the second part is creativity as well.
Yeah.
That this career allows, which is pretty unique, especially at such an early, age of being in the business world.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, so what I would like to focus on the next 15-20 minutes is there's a lot of people wanting, there's a lot of interest in product management. There's a lot of people who are wanting to go, but then there's also all kind of things people are assuming, or thinking that they need this versus this. So let's do a little bit deep dive around what are the skills that product managers need to break into the industry and to succeed, and what are some of the skill sets that they might not need. So let's just start with actually let's just start with what people don't need to be a product manager that sometimes people assume.
Yeah. And, especially since I was switching, as you know, Vivek, I kind of bounced around with the idea so many times. And I was always like, I don't have X, Y, and Z to become a product manager. So I think the first thing that you don't need to become a product manager is a technical background. It's good to have an understanding of how SaaS products work. And you can just understand that by a simple Google, search and watching videos, but you don't need to know how to code. You don't need a degree in computer science. And especially now, as I'm working with students, who want to be product managers, I can see that that is what stops a lot of people from becoming a product manager. But as someone from who's biology background, you don't need that at all.
Yeah. So you don't need a technical background. Yeah. You don't need.
And then I guess the second thing you don't need is an MBA. I think a lot of companies like Amazon do, I think, require MBA, but most of the companies that hire for product manager, they look for your design sense, your product sense, your critical thinking skills, all of that before, if you have an MBA or not, which I
Yeah.
personally love a lot. And I think the last thing actually that I want to add as well is you don't need extensive certifications either. It's all about, getting down and dirty and learning the actual skills that you need to be a product manager, and then spending your time getting a bunch of different certifications like PMO, PMP, whatever. I don't even know the name.
Yeah.
But it's good to have some, but I don't think, you necessarily need it to become a product manager.
Yeah. And last thing I'll add, Neha, is in a lot of the job descriptions of the product manager role, there are things like 2+ years of experience as a PM or 5+ years of experience as a PM, working with hundreds of students at this point in a lot of the PO/PM Scrum Master role. What we found is a lot of the times when they're making that job description, they're just copying and pasting, and they're putting that like they would love to have somebody with 2 years of experience, but it's, there's every day people who are not product managers are going and applying for product manager roles. And we're going to talk about what kind of skills do they need to be able to get that role. But you don't necessarily also need to be already a product manager. So let's dive into, oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna, echo that. I've worked in consulting for a little bit, and I actually prepared jobs for recruiters, like job description, and it's not as well thought out as you think they are. So definitely don't let that be a constraint. As apply to as many positions as possible is a strategy.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah, and as a common friend of ours, Rich shared, right? So like if people are product managers, they're not interested in another product manager role. They're trying to become either product lead or director of product, right? So for roles that's a product manager, it's totally okay for somebody who doesn't have an extensive background in product management to apply. So let's talk about what product managers actually need, what kind of skills they are. So yeah, so
Right.
yeah, go ahead. Like what do you think are the skills that you've learned that you need to to get a job as a product manager?
Yeah, Vivek, you've been a product manager in the past. You start.
Yeah, definitely. So one thing is you just need to know that, hey, you just need to know that, hey, I want to become a product manager and I'm willing to like learn a few things. So just that growth mindset, instead of saying, I don't have this experience or I don't know this. There will be a lot of things that you don't know, but if somebody wants to become a product manager, there's also so many resources and you'll find the answer. So mainly just being willing to learn and experiment, build your network, find out, your job as a product manager is to figure it out how to get that job as a product manager, right? So just that growth mindset and willingness to learn and experiment.
Yeah. Absolutely agree with the growth mindset. I don't think I've ever, been in this position and have been like, I'm done learning, There's just plenty of things to learn about, plenty of people to learn from. And especially in this field, there are just so many smart people with the right industry expertise that, it's very exciting when you're kind of, learning from them throughout the process. So
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Another skill set that, in working with a lot of folks, I've seen people from sales or people who have just general level of persuasion. They are actually really good. They actually become a great product manager. It's just a core skill set, being able to communicate with different stakeholders or different buyers, being able to communicate succinctly, being able to communicate the value, and really influencing a group of people without having direct authority. I think that persuasion skills, a lot of folks who are in sales sometimes have it, but you don't have to be in sales to have persuasion skills. So I think that's another skill set that people already do possess who are not in product management, and that can really help people to become a product manager.
I think, yeah, I think that's one of the most important skills. When you look at a product and you're even coming up with an idea, you have to sell that idea to your stakeholders. Why is this specific idea really important for whatever problem we're trying to solve? And usually, in the ideation phase, you get input from your designers, developers, and come up with multiple solutions, right? So you have to find what the right solution is and back it up with data, user research, whatever it is, to sell that to your business stakeholders.
Yeah.
So yeah, persuasion is very, very, very important. And especially
Yeah.
because we also don't have authority in this field, right?
Yeah.
No reports, no developers report to me, no designers report to me.
Yeah. And for those who are kind of curious, right? Like, just know that Neha and I both, at some point, we didn't have any experience. Like we had experience maybe working in some other fields, sales, or I have an engineering background. We've had growth mindset in certain areas, right? But when it came time for us to go into that product role, what we needed to do is we exercises our curiosity muscle, just really being curious, right? Like, once you've learned there's a role called product manager where you get to work in cross-functional teams, get to build awesome products, get to experiment, get to help out engineering teams. Once you know that this role exists, one of the things that what I did is I got really curious, like, oh wow, like, who are the people? Like, what are their week to week, day to day? Like, how do engineers build products, right? Like, what are the dynamics? What are the challenges? I also got curious about like the processes when a group of people are building products. Like, what does the process look like? What has already been documented, like Google search, right? Like, you can find this information by just reading some blogs, watching some videos. So we talked about people, process, and then the product, right? There's so many apps that we use on a daily basis. And some of the apps that we really like, for me, it was really being curious. Oh, wow, like, this is a really interesting product, like the way that it's designed, the way that the sign up flow is, what it asks me to do after sign up, how it's giving me an upsell opportunity, what are they doing to retain me as a user. So just like being curious and kind of thinking about the people, the process, the product, and overall, like, what kind of problem they're trying to solve with the product, like the digital product, right? It all boils down to asking those questions to yourself, like researching, connecting with people who are already in product or in that product space, and just really getting curious and asking questions.
Yeah,
That is a skill set that that will take you far as a product manager.
absolutely agree with that. I think you covered everything. So curiosity is
Yeah.
very important just in general, but especially in product.
Yeah. Another skill set that Neha and I were just discussing this too. This is good news. So this is a skill set. Just sounds so simple, right? Be a good listener. Everybody's saying this. It sounds like a trite,
Sounds
but
simple.
really, when somebody is new to the field, right? You don't have a lot of experience. You don't have a lot of data. You probably don't even have connections. There's a lot of things that you don't have, but uh, innately, when you don't know those things, you cannot help but become a good listener. And it kind of goes to the same point that we talked about, just curiosity. Listening. So this kind of goes in the interview process as well, like listening to recruiters and asking, oh, wow, this is really interesting. Like, why was this product owner, a product manager role posted? Like, did the previous product manager quit, or this is a new team? What kind of challenges are they facing? I saw something interesting in the job requirement, like why, what's so significant about this point? And just really asking those questions and just really listening, right? You can, and this is the same thing applies, as a product manager, it sounds like you're managing, you're creating, you're critically thinking and coming up with a lot of things. However, in reality, when you join a new company, you're not creating anything new. You're just like first 60, 90 days, you're spending a lot of time really understanding the current processes, the current product, the problem that they're trying to solve. So it's really hard for you to come up with those solutions if you are not willing to listen and pay attention and kind of get curious and ask those questions. So that's the reason why I think people without experience have actually more leverage over people who have experience, because as I had more experience, I went with a lot of assumptions, a lot of the biases, versus if I went, whenever I'm in a new product manager role, if I went with like a clear mind, did my research, and then came up with really good question and listened, I can contribute to a lot of things going in the right direction for the product.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Good listening is extremely important, again, in all areas. But it really helps specifically when, you're in those user interviews, when you're with your stakeholders, to listen to them and understand what is the sentiment towards any request that they're, asking from you, or how do they feel about your product, And so many times, and in product is called quantitative data, quantitative research, so many times, or qualitative, excuse me. So many times, you have your data that suggests something else, and then you speak to a user and you listen to, their observation, their sentiment towards your product, that truly gives the insight on how it's doing and what the next step should be for you.
Yeah.
And all of that ties back to, having good listening skills, being observant to behavioral influences on your product. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. One thing I want to add is like, so let's not confuse this good listening with just, you going to meeting and just listening. From my personal experience, what has really helped me when I am putting my attention and when I'm really listening to what people are communicating, and when I'm probing and getting curious and asking further question, it just helps me become somebody who can ask better questions. And if you're in a group and you're asking better question, it just helps everybody, right? Because a lot of the times the decisions are made as a team, and those discussion actually drive those decisions. So being a good listener really helps you ask great questions. And that is one thing that you're doing every day. You're asking questions to your users, your engineering teams, your dev manager, your stakeholders. So I just wanted to connect that point. So what else? What other skills do we need?
Yeah, I think we covered some really good ones that is often overlooked, and is masked under, being technical, and having an MBA and stuff. So definitely I agree with all those. I think one skill that's also very important for a product manager is having critical thinking skills, So really look at what the problem is at hand and work collaboratively to, with your teams to come up with the solution that balances need of the customer, the business, and while it's technically feasible. And when you're actually, taking a problem and you're executing and breaking it down into tactical pieces, that's when the critical thinking skills really comes into play.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to, kind of break things down into smaller pieces and really find a way to tie everything together to the long-term vision.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So as we were discussing the skill sets, one thing I want to help the listeners think about is these are the skill sets. If let's say I interview for product managers, interviewing is such a short process.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the mindset that I would look for if I'm interviewing for a product manager. So when it comes to like the example that I sent you, like being a good listener, I'd love to hear an actual evidence somebody's a good listener versus just saying I'm a good listener.
Yeah.
In contrast to somebody who is more of a drive, like, yes, you need to be a driver, but like if I'm looking for an effective PM, I want to hear the mindset somebody's willing to really understand the current processes, what people are doing, in contrast to like just like driving and doing things, right? Again, driving and being able to take action is also very important skills for a product manager. So and then the other thing is just know that these skills that we're talking about, this is a scale, right? It's not like you have growth mindset or persuasion or not. It just the reason why we're talking about these skills is we're not even talking about how you acquire these skills. We're just kind of putting these are important skills, and wherever you fall on that scale, you might want to think about how you can increase these skill sets.
Oh yeah.
And when it comes to the interviewing, we're also giving you the mindset that these are the skill set that we're looking. So if you're a new or aspiring product manager, you might want to think about how you can bring out some of the experiences that you've had, where you've shown growth mindset, where you've shown curiosity, where you've been a good listener, where you've done critical thinking. So that is kind of the purpose of us kind of going into the skill set. So there are a few other skill sets. Neha, do you want to take this other one that we had?
Yeah, sure. So one thing that, I also think is very important, and this becomes more important when you are a little bit more senior, but I think it's important to show in your interview that you are able to put things into perspective. So you're not only working on writing user stories, but you have a good understanding of why you're writing the user stories.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I would define this skill as being a long-term visionary and, being a long-term thinker.
Yeah.
So being able to connect every single problem to your, high level KPIs, OKRs, objective and key results, or business vision is extremely important as a product manager. And I feel like, just because we are interviewing and talking about, or we are talking about, people looking to break into product management, there's a lot of times, where it's like, oh, I've never actually been in the business world. So how can I showcase that I'm a long-term visionary? But you are a long-term visionary when you are picking what major to, choose in college, or what type of friends to make, or, like what type of workout is the best for you. So those all kind of, show that you're long-term visionary because you're focused on the end goal that you want, which is like maybe being fit or gaining more weight, right? And you're breaking it down into smaller pieces, but you never really lose that vision of like where you're trying to go. So it's really
100%.
important to kind of have that skill as well.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I mean, this is I was scared of the word visionary when I was new as a product manager. But yeah, just playing a long-term game, like running short experiments, having 2 weeks iteration and coming up with something concrete. But then really just simply asking question like, Vivek, why is this team so focused on, iterating on this? Like, what's the long-term game? And what's lying 6 months ahead, 12 months ahead, and what's the ultimate leverage? That's the question that I'm asking as a product manager and an entrepreneur is where's the leverage point? And once you understand leverage in business, a lot of the time making product work is about finding that leverage and that specific knowledge. So yeah, definitely very important skill to have as a product manager.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another one that we just discussed is just emotional intelligence. Just being, because you're working with engineering teams, stakeholders, you are working with your boss who's got different set of priorities, probably different skill sets, different different things that they are responsible or accountable for, working with customers. So you're working with wide variety of roles, and they're accountable for different things, and they're motivated by different things, right? So and time is, everybody's, when you're working in a large company, people are like busy. And yeah, just understanding self-management, right? Being able to be in a little bit chaotic environment and really understanding your own emotions, managing yourself, and showing up as a servant leader, as a facilitator, as somebody who's able to ask those important questions and keep the important things important, right? Like,
Yeah. I think it's really important, especially with emotional intelligence, because in the field, there are a lot of different priorities, as you mentioned. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, you do have angry stakeholders asking you for strict deadlines and, asking you to release something when it shouldn't be released. And that's when you can, exercise your emotional intelligence to really separate the problem from the people that are requesting those problems and understand the why behind, what they're asking for. And ultimately, kind of communicate with them in a way that is again, as you said, self-managed,
yeah,
because you are dealing with a lot of different stakeholders, a lot of different priorities, a lot of different decisions that have to be made. And sometimes those decisions can be taken personally. So it's important to kind of, separate the problem space from personal space. And I
yeah,
think that's why emotional intelligence is so important in this field.
yeah. One thing I can add from my personal experience is, as a new product manager, like, I'll give you an example. So you're hired as a new product manager, or you're a potential hire. If you go into the team, there will be a lot of chaos. There will be some anti-patterns where you might be able to see a very definite problem on how things should be done or how things shouldn't be done. Something to keep in mind when you're going and entering as a new person into an organization that they're already working on something. If you don't have the connection, you cannot, it's hard for you to make any correction. So the main thing is connection before correction, right? So I've seen in my experience, if I have good relationship with my engineering team, if I have shown empathy, if I understand their world, understand their challenges, same thing with stakeholders, um, it will really help me. It has helped me drive those hard to deliver messages that, hey, like, have you considered doing things this way? Like, this thing is creating a challenge. So those messages are a lot easier to be heard if we have, if you actually build that relationship with your stakeholder, with your manager, with your dev team, with your QA. So building relationship and managing relationship is a huge part of your product management role. And this is something that a lot of people are good at. People are good at managing stakeholders, outside of the tech world, right? One of the things that it helped me, and I even joked this as an interview, is like, some of my stakeholders and customers were my parents, and my parents are extremely demanding.
Same.
And we've talked about this, right? Yeah, your parents are extremely demanding.
Yep.
Both of our parents wanted us to go to med school and do all kind of things where they had a very set idea of why things how things need to be done. And we were also financially relying on them. So I don't know how I did it, but I said, like, in an interview that, hey, I have brown parents who are really demanding. Like, my first I'm emotionally intelligent is because I had just had to protect and manage this relationship, because I was also needing money from them on a monthly basis because I was
You know the
not
boundary
earning.
not to cross, basically. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah. Anything else, Neha?
I think one last is because I am from the data background, and everything that we mentioned, stakeholder management, all of that, I think is basically cherry on top if you have this to back you up, which is data driven. I think it's really important to use whatever data you have at hand. So it could be qualitative, as I mentioned, user interviews, research, all of that stuff, and quantitative. So actually product analytics to make the right decisions. Because when you go to stakeholders and you say no, you aren't able to meet their request and you have data to back up why, it becomes a lot more easy to have that conversation. So I think the last one and the bonus one and my favorite one is definitely data driven. And I think that is a skill that is very inherently common in a lot of people. And especially, if you're out of college, something that you can kind of back that up, pull examples from your past experiences and talk about a time where you've used data to make decisions.
Yeah. No, that's great. So folks, like what we did is we just talked about what the mindset is, what the role is, and what are the skills needed and what's not needed. Now, we didn't talk about how to acquire the skill sets. So this is, you want to take this as an action item and think about, okay, how can I be more growth minded? How can I improve my persuasion? How do I show up more curious in my relationships, in my work? How can I be a good listener? How can you improve your critical thinking skills? Obviously, reading and writing, right? And reading blogs, visionary, emotional intelligence. So these are all areas that you can start growing yourself. And also, we are going to be creating like multiple series of these podcasts and course just to kind of help you grow these skill sets. So I'm excited about this collaboration, Neha. And anything you want to share to close out this podcast?
I think the last, piece that I want to cover and that you mentioned is it is all those skill sets, they sound kind of scary at first, but it is truly exercise. I wasn't really born like persuasive or I definitely was not a good listener, but over time I was able to acquire those skills by, practicing and exercising those muscles. So definitely backing that up, these are things that you can build. And truly, I think what separates a good product manager from a great product manager are these soft skills that we talked about more than having technical skills and an MBA or whatnot. So if anything, it's, it's a motivator for people without a technical background to really go after and change the industry and the field to show that, we need that fresh perspective.
Yeah. My last message is, folks, like your job, if you're trying to become a product manager, is to figure it out how to get good at these skill sets. Like, that's all you got to do. Just figure out, like read, listen, research, and figure out how to get good. And all you got to do is just get good. Like, you don't have to be best. You don't have to be exceptional. Nobody's exceptional in the beginning. Yeah. Once you get a job, you'll have plenty of opportunities to network with mentors, learn from really interesting people, or at least that's what we did. Like, in the beginning, I was an average product manager, and I just used that opportunity to really get good. And, I was not good in critical thinking skills, and, my emotional intelligence was not quite there, but that was my job, is to get good at some of these, areas that I didn't have really good skills. So
I don't think there's ever a time where you can be like, I'm 100% emotionally intelligent, right?
Yes.
So situational, so built up. So
yeah. So folks, with that, we'll close this out. Thank you, Neha. This was a very insightful conversation.
Thank you.
And yeah, we'll close it out. Thank you.